Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My guest today was great, as always. She is running for the school board. She is a mom of 3. She has elementary school kids, lots of experience in larger corporations, and really brings boots on the ground knowledge for how the decisions we make will affect kids, specifically the underrepresented elementary kids, and she was just great to talk to. Really gave me a lot of things to think about as well. So without further ado, the woman, the myth, the legend, Priscilla Graft.
Okay.
You're not a politician.
No, I'm not a politician, and so the last few months of campaigning, I think it's been a few months now, yes, have just been really eye-opening to me in terms of school boards' relationship to the established politicians in our area, etc. So I went into this, this is school, this is education.
Right.
There are students, teachers, curriculum. It's just like this holy trinity.
Right.
That the whole our educational system should revolve around, and wow, things are really being turned upside down by our pandemic. It's waking people up to
right. People are paying
who is
attention
on our school board.
Right.
And so I say all this just because I want to be really careful with how we handle a debate, because I've navigated this the past couple months. I've learned a lot. Renee actually said to me at the farmer's market, she said, I got to tell you, usually the town council race is pretty intense, but you guys have really taken the heat off of us this time.
She's like, thank you very much.
I said, you're welcome.
Yeah, well, I'm
so
sure
anyways, that's where I was coming from. I have some battle wounds.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm a little more cautious than I was 2 months ago, and just what am I entering into?
Yes.
What's the background of the folks I'm talking to? Are there some ulterior motives that I need to just be aware of, etc.? So that's kind of where you caught me.
Gotcha.
When we were sussing out a debate.
I think that the way media has become in general is a huge part of why people do not trust talking to anyone. Because you can, I was speaking to somebody the other day, and she said, look, I did this long interview with a newspaper in San Francisco, and they published the article without even quoting anything I said, because I refused to take a controversial stance. Now, somebody writing an article for a newspaper has to sell newspapers, so it's in their best interest to make it as edgy and out there as possible. And you always see... I remember seeing a Sarah Palin interview. Okay, my dad lives in Anchorage, in Alaska. He was a ravenous, Sarah Palin fan. He was like, "I love Sarah Palin," which was hilarious to me, for a number of reasons. Whatever you think about Sarah Palin, she was a character. So I remember seeing an interview with her where the interviewer was like shooting her dirty looks, and she would give an answer that I thought maybe it wasn't as detailed as he wanted, or maybe it was a little bit more non-committal than he wanted. But if that's your answer, then you need to give the person a fair shake. The person asking the questions and facilitating the conversation, it's not that person's position to judge the answer. That's the voter's job. That's the population and community, right?
You're providing the platform for them to get the information out so that people can make an educated decision. Right.
And trying to obviously make it bring clarity.
Yeah.
Right. And because again, if somebody says something that doesn't quite make sense, the person talking to them has to say, okay, well, what do you mean? I'm not even saying no. I'm just saying, like, what do you mean? Right. But you guys have that the debate this Thursday, right?
We have two.
The League of Women Voters, and it's an hour and a half or something, and it's an all candidate forum.
So there are actually two debates this week. So we have a debate moderated by Embarcadero Media, who owns danvillesanramon.com, as well as a number of other media properties. So that's Wednesday night, and that's Area 2 and Area 3 candidates.
Gotcha.
So 3 and 3, there's 6 of us. And then I can tell, and their communications are being clear with folks, you live in a certain area, you can only vote on those candidates in your area, but we're presenting you with
people should
areas.
Know. Everybody should know.
And then the next night is a debate only with Area 2. So Shelley, Greg, and myself.
How's that table?
Oh, sorry. I'm a gesticulator, so I'll have to put my hands up in the air.
Listen, I do. It's totally like I have to put my hands like tied together and just ooh. Yeah. Anyway, it just makes little dooms into the audio. Anyway, so you have.
So we have 2 debates. Yeah, we have 2 debates this week, and then ballots arrive first week of October. So, we're anticipating people are going to vote early.
Right.
So this is really the week.
This is it.
This week and next week. Yes.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, man, you're close to the finish line. For better or for worse.
Right.
Win, lose, or draw. You're getting there.
Right.
So at this point, you've been able to absorb what everyone has been saying. You've been able to think about the bigger issues. The things that are very important to the voters have obviously come to light, right? And I was talking to my wife about it just the other day. And I was like, well, you have this, and because, again, I've been talking to all these people, you have this, and you have this, and you have this position and that position. And we were laughing at it. I was like, oh my gosh, there's almost no right position here. I mean, there are different philosophies that people have. There are different relationships that people have, and obviously those relationships are valuable. You have different experiences that people have and are anticipating having, but there's no right answer to any of these things, and it just seems. I mean, taking on something, I love right answers. That's why I tutor math and grammar. Right? Like, I love right answers. Right. Why take on something so just
amorphous?
Yes. God, what a wonderful word. Yes, thank you.
It's a beautiful word.
It's a beautiful word.
Yeah, I think these are wild times, right? These are times like no other. I think that our community is realizing that the importance of local government is high. Right. It really impacts their day-to-day. And when it comes to school board, the school board trustees, and they're called trustees because they're entrusted by the community to represent their best interest. Right. When it comes to education. The school board trustees have a direct impact on their community. If they have children in the community, they're directly impacting their educational opportunities, how the budget comes together, the values that the budget reflects need to be in concert with the values of our community. If you don't have children in the community, the school board is still impacting you because the performance of your schools is directly correlated to homeowner values, and you want families moving here because they want to put their children in a great school district. It's why my husband and I moved here from San Francisco.
100%. My wife and I moved here specifically for that as well.
We looked all over, and we decided to come here, and so it's important. People are really clued in, and it's good. There are a lot of really, I don't know what the right word is, hot issues. people are, the sensitivities are high. Passion is high.
Passion is definitely high. I love that. Passion is high.
Passion is high. And I think that it just makes it even more important that the people who are on your boards, your local boards, are collaborators. They're in it for the right reasons. They're connected to their community. They have skin in the game. They're going to be in this for the long haul with their community. Because culture, like the way we do things, our norms, our attitudes, it impacts everything, and it starts at the top and it trickles down. So as a parent in this community, when...
Are you advocating trickle down?
No. That's like a totally different topic.
I couldn't help it.
Sorry.
I couldn't help it.
But it starts at the top,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
You know, and as a parent in this community, when you go on to the Parent of SRVUSD parent page and you kind of take in the climate, you can just see that people are really tense. They have camps. They feel defensive. They feel like they need to attack to protect. It's unfortunate because in times like this, you need your community to come together, collaborate, be kind, and you need that example from the top. And we're not getting that example from the top. And that was probably the thing that was the most clear to me when I was one of those parents who kind of started tuning into board meetings, realizing, you know, I've been head down, working full time. My husband works full time. We've got 3 small kids. We moved here for the good schools. So we've just been going along, and then COVID hit, and we started to catch wind of decisions being made and how they were being made, and the divisiveness, the divisive context in which they're being made, and we started tuning in, and I very quickly realized, wow, this representation, we need a fresh perspective, we need fresh ideas, we need multiple people who are really embedded in the situation. And given my background, given my professional experience, I work at Clorox on a team called Transformational Marketing, and we're all about looking at trends coming down the pike and then looking at our current infrastructure and thinking about and coming up with ideas around, okay, how do we best position this company to embrace these trends and to kind of pull ourselves together in the best way possible to move us forward. And so there's a lot of change management, there's a lot of corporate culture work, and I feel like that, coupled with my MBA from Cal, from Haas. Yep, go Bears. I know. You went yes. to undergrad there. Yep.
Yes, my wife and I both did undergrad there.
Ah, nice.
Yes,
okay.
2004. And that's where I started tutoring. So I was there.
Ah, okay.
And starting my junior year, I rolled into the tutoring center and I said, hey, you know, I'm becoming a decent writer. I'd be happy to help other students because I had learned how to write really effectively at Cal. And I was like, wow, this is easy if somebody just explains it.
Yeah.
So I tutored there for several years.
Okay.
While
at
end.
School?
Yes. So my junior and senior year, I was tutoring at the Cal Tutoring Center, helping the other students.
Okay.
I went into Cal as a math major, and then I switched to rhetoric because I fell in love with writing. So I was going to do law school. But then I started tutoring privately, and I just stuck with it.
It just clicked.
It just happened. The thing I got most excited about was the idea that I could teach law after law school, because I took this class that was taught by one of the Bolt law students, and it was sponsored by faculty, and she said, look, I'm going to give these students, the undergrads, essentially a small taste of what law school is and talk about law. And for some of us, it dissuaded us, and for some of us, we kind of dug in. But the thing that I got most excited about is when one of the law professors came and spoke to the class. And I thought it was so cool. He's like, we try to grab you guys right out of law school before you go on and start, killing yourself and making all this money. And it was never the money. It was kind of like, gosh, that sounds great. I love teaching. And after I graduated, I did apply. I did the whole LSAT and everything and applied. And it's definitely one of those things where it seems like it makes so much sense. It's like, just become an attorney. But I started tutoring these elementary middle school kids and realized, gosh, if I want to teach, I can just teach. I don't have to spend this money. I don't have to spend this time to just come back and keep teaching. I can just teach. Yeah. And if I get tired of teaching in this way, I can switch it up and do that. But yes, I did go to Cal. I love the education. I don't particularly love Berkeley, but
the community.
They're not. It's not like they're bad people. I don't like the theft. Like you put anything down on the ground and 10 seconds later it's gone. It's like that. Oh, it doesn't matter. But anyway, it's not my jam. I feel like people are too on top of each other the whole time. It's like you never have any backyards, and everybody's always like, "What's going on the other side of that fence? What is that person doing over there? Well, you can't do that." It's like, what are you doing? I'm barbecuing. Go away. It's a little like, "Oh, you're killing an animal." I'm like, it was already dead. I'm not gonna kill the pig. I just bought the pork. I didn't do it, man.
Don't judge.
Come on, man. You killed the carrot. What do you want me to do? Freaking vegans. Anyway, so look, you said something that has not been said to me in this way. You said a budget reflects a philosophy. That's
our community's values.
Yes, budget reflects values. Excuse me. Yes. That's a beautiful way of putting that. Do you feel
I learned that at Cal. I learned that from Haas.
Look at you.
That, a budget isn't just numbers. It comes together, and the pieces come together in a way that create a picture of what a community or an organization values.
What they value.
Yes.
What they're into.
Yes. So, how to say this?
Take your time.
I'm a very thoughtful person. I like to have information in front of me before I make any grand sweeping comments. I don't like to get over my skis and make any comments that, aren't accurate. So I will say I'm really excited to get on the board and get to roll up my sleeves and really dig into the budget. I've seen, what's published from prior years, etc. But when I do that, I would be looking at it from the lens of, all right, as a student, as a school board trustee, my number one focus is student achievement and equitable opportunity for student achievement across all of our students. And to go back to the holy trinity of education is students, teachers, and curriculum. And those three things working together are what launch our youngest generations into their future and their success, right? So it's one of the most important things in the world. So I would be looking at our budget with that lens. And are we setting ourselves up in a way through our budget that reflects our community's values? I've talked to so many people, Matt, the past couple months. Everyone from, people in our local community to state legislators. I'll tell you, our district has a reputation beyond this community, and it's a reputation that just reaffirmed for me that I'm doing the right thing by throwing my hat in the ring.
How do you mean? What's the reputation?
That our budget doesn't necessarily align with the usual school district budget values, if that makes sense. That there's some opportunity for our district to look at things.
Well,
and I don't want to say more than that because I haven't been able to look at our most recent budget and really get in there. But those comments were really interesting to me, and I think really important to highlight. I know there are very specific examples, very recently with, the retroactive raise to Superintendent Schmidt, and I've learned things like, our teachers make in the top 10% average salary, our superintendent does as well. And those kinds of comments make me think, okay, we have an issue across our country, right, where the people at the top, the CEOs, they make a lot of money. And then the worker bees, there's a big gap there. Mm-hmm. And it's becoming bigger and bigger. And it's that gap. And so I, as a school board trustee, would not be content with just letting it lie at, our superintendent, yeah, he makes a lot of money, but he makes in the top 10% of what superintendents make locally, and our teachers do too. They make in the top 10%. That's not all the information. What's the difference there? And do we want to be leaders in this space and say, no, you know what? Students, teachers, and curriculum, they're the most important thing. And we want to take a look at that pay discrepancy gap. And we want to see, do we want to kind of take a stand and show that our community values our teachers in a way that is maybe is different than surrounding districts. And we're okay with that because we really value our students' achievement, and we know that our teachers are the ones who contribute to that and grow that.
Gotcha. So,
I've been on a run-on sentence here. You got to cut me off.
No, you're fantastic. You say whatever you want. So, if I'm understanding, you're saying, look, here's the thing. If we look at the percentages for a superintendent in comparison to the surrounding areas, and we look at our teachers' surrounding areas, they both clock in between 90 and 100%. Right? So they're both well compensated in comparison to surrounding areas for that specific profession. Location, right? Yes. Teachers to teacher, superintendent. And what you're saying is, hey, that may be true, but the actual dollar values of total compensation between these two actors, that's really significant. And you feel that it would be more reflective of the community values to reassess the actual dollar value. Not like, hey, we're going to pay this guy in the 90th percentile, and we're going to pay this guy in the 90th percentile, but like, hey, if this person's making all-in compensation $400,000, and this person's only making all-in compensation $150,000, that discrepancy is too large. So we need to either bring one up or we need to bring one down so that they're more in line with each other. Is that yes. essentially what you're... Okay.
And I think we would need to... I think that good leaders are connected to their community. They have a good pulse on what their community's values are in regard to that topic, and they are very transparent with, all right, this is what we're dealing... Like, this is the situation. And this is what we've done in the past. These are things we could do differently. And you work with your community to come up with solutions that our community is proud of.
Right. And speaking of community being proud, I mean, first off, the Danville schools, and not just Danville, but San Ramon, the whole, San Ramon Valley Unified School District, they are great schools. I mean, you moved here for the schools. I moved here for the schools. And a large part of that is the enormous generosity of the parents.
Yes.
Right? Like the huge effort that the schools go through to fundraise, and they put out the call and the parents answer. At some point, though, with the decrease in funding from the state that seems to be always just getting less and less and less on a per-student basis, there's going to come a point where the community perhaps says, hey, look, we are carrying an unfair burden here, right? Like, this is public education, and we are essentially funding them as if it's private, right? So do you think there's a way to address that?
Yes. So as a parent in the district, I experience people call someone recently told me it's like check writing fatigue. It's not just money that parents are giving. It's their time, their energy. And so I really feel that we need to do an energy audit. Okay? And what I mean by that is that our district, so our local control funding formula, it doesn't give us much to work with, and it's because our community is of a higher socioeconomic status. And so, yes, parents are relied on to heavily subsidize the funding for our district. And what we, the district, owe it to the parent community is, hey, we need you guys. We appreciate you guys. We couldn't do this without you. And we're going to focus your efforts on fundraising measures and activities that are worth your time, energy, and dollars. So, for example, we know that, there's a few different things I want to say.
Take your time.
So one
and
is...
There's a pad there if you want to write things down so you don't forget.
Okay. So one is, look where we live.
Sure.
We have some of the best and brightest companies all around us, right? Some of the most innovative companies in the world are in our backyard. And we need to remind them that they're in our backyard. And we need to work with them on how to better partner to support the student achievement that is surrounding their campuses. So right now, I guarantee you we're leaving money on the table. We know that there are, like Chevron, for example, they work through Donors Choose. We know they come in, I think it's like every September, and they fund grants on the table. But we still year over year don't have all our grants written in time for when they come in. So we're missing opportunities just right there. So there's some, how do we start to look into that? How can we help teachers write grants? How can we automate? Could we outsource that? How do we make sure that all of our needs are on the table when these big players come through with their checkbooks?
Right, because they want to help.
They want to help. It's a tax write-off for them.
Right.
It's a cause marketing opportunity for them. It's great for them. It's great for everyone, right? And sometimes it just takes a little organization and support to help teachers or to help people get everything ready for that.
Right.
And so that's just one example. But what if we started focusing on things like that, focusing on other opportunities like that, and then kind of see some of our efforts for what they are? Like, for example, the Run for Education. It's been a great, great program for many, many years. But how can we think about making it much bigger than it is? Making what parents put into that event through hours, energy, and funding, how can we make that better match what their school sites get back in return, funding-wise? So I just think there's a lot of really great ideas out there in the community that we just, as a school board trustee, we can inspire, we can help inspire, reaching outside of our bubble and getting out into the external community. School districts, can be kind of insular organizations, and how do we really support extending our tentacles outside the normal boundaries to bring in the corporate partnership opportunities that are out there.
Gotcha. And again, people openly saying, "Hey, help me help you."
Yes.
Right? You
help
don't even
me write you a check that I can feel good about. The other thing is parents want to see the result of their dollars or labor. You know, they want to see, okay, I just put in all this money, and wow, I just found out we have, you know, a school reserve fund, and my kids are graduating in a year, so we're not even going to see, you know, so how do we get more transparent about opportunities, where money is going? How do we really inspire people and show them what their money is going toward, and assure them that the return on their investment is worth it?
Right.
So much of that, again, that message can trickle down from the top, and it's all about communicating.
So communication is one of those things where you do go on Nextdoor or you go on Facebook, and you see the different groups and the different, like tribes and factions of people, and they're usually dug in really hard, right? Like
they're not moving.
You have like get the teachers back faction and like not over my dead body faction, and you have those different things, but that's such a poor way of communicating. Now, I'm not saying that the board communicates in that manner, but it's a poor way of communicating. Mm-hmm. But it's you're very prolific, right? So people get on those sites and just start saying all kinds of crazy things.
What is it? It's the silent majority and the very loud minority. I don't know.
Right. That's
social media
correct. Amplifies the voice of people that are just out there.
Have you watched Social Dilemma?
I have not. A student just recommended it to me.
I'm halfway through. It's on Netflix.
I don't have a lot of dilemmas with social media. Like for me, I don't really participate. I only post things and drop. I don't spend time like sifting through Instagram and stuff or Facebook. Mm-hmm. I got off Facebook for years and only popped back on because I was like, hey, I have, I'll post these things. But speaking of this, okay, and I had a different question, but this is just a softball question for me. It's, you have young people. And you have a young, if I may say, daughter. Mm-hmm. And speaking of social media and technology in general in our public schools, it seems that you have very much stood by the idea that, hey, we need someone on the board who has kids in the district that is directly affected and tuned into the issues. Yes. And I feel like with young women in particular and social media and what's going on our campuses, that is probably one of the
biggest issues.
It's like hiding in plain sight. Everybody knows it's bad. I don't think anybody would say, oh no, it's fine, it's not a problem. I think everybody knows it's bad, but I think it takes sometimes, perhaps with an issue like this, it takes a parent seeing the effects of this. Because I've talked to a lot of parents and I work with a lot of students and, go to people's houses and they're like, oh, this is really bad. Like, you guys are not happy about the situation. And there are, smear campaigns and like these long, elaborate, like it could take a whole year if somebody's gone on like a campaign to just ostracize somebody. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So
it is.
Do you feel like there's a way to combat that for these future generations?
Yes. So, gosh, I feel like you're hitting on some of my big things.
Look at that.
Look at that. We're
great minds.
So yes, I think we need to introduce social media usage education, and that's like a terrible word for it, and I'm sure we'll come up with something much better, but you can get what it means, right? So it's almost like we teach nutrition, a little bit of this, vegetables are good and this and that, but a little too much of that. Why we need to teach our students about social media ingestion, what are the good parts of social media, what are the negative parts, what are some
I think
red flags.
Cat photos are the only positive, right? Like,
and there's
you want to see somebody's sushi,
and
go onto Instagram to see sushi.
Yes, right. But I think it's really important for us to get in there and focus on how do we educate our students on what social media, the power of social media. And when you watch Social Dilemma, it's fascinating because they have folks from from Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. I mean, these people are the ones who built the algorithms. They built them to be addicting. It's really fascinating and sad at the same time. So we do need to start educating our students, and I think there are a lot of parents who would love to learn about it too.
Oh my gosh, everyone. Like, do your parents mess around?
This is a new frontier for us, you know. Yeah. So that's huge. And you know, my oldest is in 4th grade, and a bunch of his buddies, you know, their older siblings are in middle school and high school. So, you know, I sit and listen to these stories about, you know, bullying on social media, kids, you know, girls not being happy with their, you know, image, etc. It's just really, it needs to be addressed. There are a lot of other issues too, like vaping, and you know, you really need people on the board who even know that these things exist, and then who also are having these conversations daily with the community in the natural fabric of their day. I love the table. It's fine. So excited.
I love it. I love every second. I'm over here slamming coffee too, so don't worry about it. That makes sense, and it is something that really concerns me because I work with a lot of young women, and I work with them on their college essays, and people just almost every other essay is talking about at least dropping hints at eating disorders and, you know, counseling and frustrations and things like that. And these are young women that I think have incredible potential in the world. They're fantastic people. And it breaks, like, I have to catch myself because I'll be in like an essay class and I'll read somebody's essay. I'm like, oh my God, I want to start crying in the middle of class. But I'm like, oh, keep it together. And of course, then I'm like typing furiously in the Google Doc, like trying to look, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to. It's very powerful, but it's so prevalent. And
I mean, I just have to, here I am, I'm a 42-year-old mom. I like you, I wasn't on Facebook. I kind of re-entered Facebook recently during the campaign. You know, I'm really excited for what I can bring to the table on the school board, and that like fresh energy and that new perspective I can bring. And I so eagerly joined, you know, the parent Facebook pages, and the battle scars I have from this campaign so far are all social media. And it was very eye-opening to experience that dynamic and that divisiveness firsthand, and then to learn how to, you know, pick myself up, stay true to my core, and, you know, just keep plowing ahead. And you think about, again, I'm an adult, grown adult who has a lot of self-confidence, has navigated a lot of things, and then you think about middle school and high schoolers who they're, you know, shaping their points of view and who they are and how they want to present themselves and what they're comfortable with sharing, and then to kind of be thrown into that in those formative times is really,
it's terrifying.
It's important. It's important to address within our educational system.
Right. I mean, we talk about the birds and the bees, right?
Health.
Yeah. Like we go into sex ed and whatnot. Like, why wouldn't we talk about this? Hey, this is going to really upset you. This could turn you upside down in a lot of different ways with health and mental health and physical health. I mean, people start, again, you develop eating disorders, you get massively depressed. It goes after it.
And it comes back to community values. And, you know, hey, let's figure out what are our community values around social media as it relates to our students. And then let's deploy them.
Right. Well, when I was a kid in elementary school, I remember them talking to us about people on TV and seeing people on TV and seeing commercials and whatnot. And I mean, obviously, the way television has changed, you're not subject to commercials like you used to be. But they talked to us extensively, young people in like the late 80s and early 90s about, hey, you can't think that this is how you're supposed to look as a young man or a young woman. Like and the things that they're showing you are not things that you actually need, because you have the things you need. You have food. Like there's no Sunday morning or Saturday morning cartoon where somebody's trying to sell you an apple. Like you have an apple. They're trying to sell you junk food. They're trying to sell you hypercolor. Do you remember hypercolor shirts?
Yes, I do.
My gosh, they were so fantastic.
Like heat sensitive?
Yeah.
The body glove shorts.
God, I got to do a run of the hypercolor shirts. The problem was if you washed them in the dryer, dried them in the dryer on hot at any point, then it was all over, right? Because they never, it was like you were stuck with a pink shirt. It was like it was supposed to be gray and then turn pink. It's unfortunate. So, this is something that people have talked about. We have DARE. Right, I mean, obviously that's a big thing, or at least was, and
it was.
Yeah, it was.
We have to evolve it. I mean, vaping. There's a whole slew of topics that our students are facing that previous generations have never dealt with, and again,
different delivery. My dad's a physician. He's he's terrified of vaping, because he was saying, look, the delivery system is being developed.
Yeah.
Right. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he's got this big conspiracy about 5-hour energies too. Yeah. He's like, look, people are going to get used to somebody reaching into their pocket for a tiny bottle, slamming it, and moving on with their day. You don't know what that is. And I was like, what? And he said, look, vaping's the same way. We're going to become accustomed to seeing somebody grab something as small as a pen or a little eraser or something, put it in their mouth, take a little puff on it, and move on with their day. Yeah. What you're delivering will change once we normalize the delivery system, right? Like, don't kid yourself and think that it's just going to be flavored tobacco for a long time. And it's true. I've seen people, driving down the street, and you look over and somebody has this little vape thing that, and you're like, are you getting stoned while you're driving, is it like is that caffeine? Like, what do you? And you have no way of knowing. So the delivery system has become so commonplace that we don't even notice anymore, and now it's going to be used for different things.
Yeah, you start to become like numb or blind to it,
right, because it's so commonplace. I mean, and then you have. I was talking to Renee Morgan yesterday, and she was saying that there was that smoke shop that was apparently trying to get in downtown, right next to the San Ramon High School area. It was like, God, could you imagine? No. It would just be horrific. Yeah. So,
not okay.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
There has to be some low-hanging fruit for you. Things that you see, okay, look, this is, like, let's talk about the first, I said it to somebody else, the first 100 days. What is that like for you when you get in there? Obviously, you feel like, look, we need to look at the budget, and to some degree, you feel like the budget is not reflecting our community values. And again, not really specifically. I mean, we talked about the superintendent and teachers. So to some degree, but you're tempering that, saying, get in there. We got to look at it, because I don't know all the details, and you're exercising, moderation here, which is great. So what are the other things, though, where you say, hey, look, I know that this is offensive to the community. I know that this needs to be fixed. I know specifics on this topic that I want to get after. What are those low-hanging items?
Well, gosh, I mean, the most immediate thing is, how do we ensure that all of our students have access to phenomenal education during our pandemic? And distance learning works for some, but not for all.
Right.
And we need to really approach that topic with a lot more energy and passion and commitment than we have up until today. The fact that we're still waiting for our email, gosh, it's end of September, so that we can designate if we want to be, distance learning family or an in-person family. We're still waiting to pronounce our choice. I'm really glad that they have finally made the progress that needs to be made on the waiver application process for elementary schools. I applaud Superintendent Malloy for, jumping into this midstream and getting some stuff done.
Yeah, man, he came into just a hornet's nest.
Yeah, he did, and I'm really hopeful. I think that our community needed that change. He seems to be much more communicative than his predecessor, and he seems to embrace a totally different attitude. And I'm not the only parent who feels that way. There are a lot of parents talking about that, and we're all, cheering him on. But a lot of the comments that have come from the school board meetings up until today have been appalling to the parent community, and really reflect that the school board needs to be more connected to the folks on the ground.
If I may push on that, what comments?
So, everything from the initial vote to return or not to return. This vote was made. They all made a vote, not knowing all of the safety information that they needed to know. And then the next day, Governor Newsom came down and changed it up and said we do need to remain in remote learning. But hey, there's this waiver process for elementary school students, and that's because of the scientific data that shows that our youngest learners have a need for in-person in a way that our secondary students do not, and that there are different risk factors associated with different age groups. And it is our school board trustees' obligation to explore all opportunities to ensure that students are given the best opportunity to thrive and achieve. And so to not be, vigorously pursuing all options is just not okay. It just seems to be this kind of, a shrug, and it is what it is, And when you're a parent and you're looking at your kids' eyes after being on, a screen from 8 to 2, and they're all red, and they've never had headaches before.
They're getting migraines now.
And there are so many parents talking about how their kids used to love school, and now, is it a school day, Mom? Oh. And that is not a comment on teachers. The teachers are amazing. They are broadcasting into our homes every day, and we're all awestruck by how they have navigated this situation so professionally and with such an awesome attitude. It's been very inspiring, but I think that we all need to see that same approach from the top.
Gotcha. So again, there needs to be a different attitude going after this. Yeah. I think is the big message you're saying, which is, hey, look, you're shifting ground, fine, that's fine, but the aggression and offense that the district can put into place towards finding solutions can be improved.
Yes. And again, I think that motivation and inspiration comes from the top. The Superintendent Malloy and his administration are looking to their school board trustees to provide that direction and vision and support and rally cry, and that can be really powerful if done with the type of connection and passion that you get from parents who have children experiencing distance learning and experiencing the situation. Because I it's a firm belief of mine, and it's why I'm running, is that the best ideas and the best and most practical solutions come from the people who are actually living the experience, the issues at hand. And the people who are living the issues also have the most passion to push the boulder up the hill. You know, it's not theoretical for us. It's not philosophical. This is our life. This is our children's education. So you need the folks at the top to really be in it with their community. And there are a bunch of ways to make sure that happens. You know, you should have parents on your school board. We might, after this election, have no parents on our school board, because Mark Jewett's the only one right now who has kids in our schools, and his term's up and he's not rerunning. We need student representation on our school board. There are lots of districts who do this, and there's a lot of interest from our high school students in having a seat at the school board table. They've been turned down in the past, and that's something that I think is super important. Let's hear it straight from the students. You get the best information from the students. Yes.
Sure.
So I just think there's a lot of ways for us to change this up pretty quickly, and to work off the momentum of the community, to harness all of this healthy tension and put it to work in a really productive way. And you know, we were talking about this before we went on air, but I approach things from an enterprise mindset. I look at all views. I look at the big picture. Anyone who knows me at work, at home, in the neighborhood, I am someone who I love to listen. I bring people together. I'm very kind, but I also get stuff done. I don't mess around in the noise.
Right.
We had that conversation.
Caught up in the spin.
I don't get caught up in the spin. I blow right by it, and I convince people to come with me.
So, how do we change the message with the school board? How do we get the communication? Because everybody has talked about transparency. We need transparency.
Yeah. Okay. I have so many ideas on this.
Well, okay. I won't even finish the question. Just go.
But I do want to make no. Finish your question.
No. Well, all I'm saying is, it seems so clear that there's such a block between actual parents and school boards and teachers and the teachers union, and then it just all swirls around in this sloppy mess, and then you get like these half truths and these. Again, people really like controversy. I'm the more I talk to people, and the more I think about the situation, the more I really think the people who seek out that controversy are like conspiracy theorists. Like, they want to find something. They're like, you should be enraged by this. Mm-hmm. And you're like, what? What is it? And it's almost like they found aliens. They're like, hey, we found it. This is like area. Like, you got to watch this film because I got a thing with a guy with a thing, with a dude. Yeah. Anyway, so I feel like people are very hung up on that. And the more time they spend on larger platforms that are not super entertaining, or excuse me, that are far more entertaining than the not super entertaining school board website, right? Where you can get all of the information. You can download the 4-hour meeting, and you can see what's going on. But nobody wants to do that. So how do we change the message and the communication coming from the school board and help to unify the parents, the Holy Trinity, right? Yeah. How do we get that more in line?
Well, that is a really good question. There's so many different parts of it.
Please, take your time.
Well, I think the first part is, we need, if we want our message to be heard, we need to go to where the people are, right? Like, we shouldn't expect people to go.
I'm pretty sure they're at Pete's.
Yes. I mean, okay. All right. Well, that could be one spot. But
we're going to
they're not at the SRVUSD website. Okay. Right.
Yes.
So So there are so many different things. It's interesting. One of my friends here, she introduced me to her friend who grew up here and now lives in Los Gatos and is a mom. She has 3 kids. She works full-time for Coca-Cola, and she is a school board trustee. And I started following her on social media and watching how she posts updates and the community vibe that is surrounding her, and it's amazing. And it's a proof point in when you get people who are part of the school community, who are entrenched in the fabric, and you get them on the school board, it can really revolutionize how you as a community work together to solve problems. I mean, she posted something recently about mask wearing. And, all right, I know it's confusing, but this is what you do. And she had, a very clear and succinct list of how to do it, when to do it, where to get them, et cetera, et cetera. And then the response was great, and that's a small example, I know. But if you kind of think about that example and you apply it to all the bigger issues, of course, some things should not be conveyed over social media, but it's just an example of how school board trustees need to go where the community is. So there's also things like, I believe that we should have, each trustee should be assigned certain school sites, and they go to those school sites at least once a month. They walk around with the principal or the superintendent. They meet with faculty. They meet with staff. They meet with students. And then the trustees can rotate. So you get this very fluid understanding. Each trustee is on site, is talking to people. Or in this day and age, we would have to figure out something with distance learning, et cetera. So,
sure.
I think that having office hours are huge. Right now, parents have really been relegated to, you want to tell a school board trustee something, send him an email.
You and 9,999 other people.
That's not fun for the trustees, and it's not fun for the parents either, right? Because parents are the primary advocates for their children. Our children can't vote. We are their voice. And so parents deserve open dialogue and two-way conversation. And if you don't provide that, people leave. And they are leaving. And we are seeing that, we talked earlier about how our district relies so heavily on parent subsidies. And some of our biggest benefactors, their kids are on wait lists for private school now. They're ready to leave.
Right.
So much, those are parents who were so involved in our district. Talk about time, energy, and money. I mean, I know some of them personally, and they are amazing volunteers in this district. And the lack of communication, relation, connection, that has driven them to a place where they are looking seriously at leaving because they feel that their students' education, they're not clear on how their students' achievement path is going to look.
Right.
And so, I want to hear about your story. What your decision?
Oh, to leave. Yeah, absolutely. So yes. We were going to. I'll be very frank. Yeah. My son was going to Green Valley Elementary, mm-hmm. and we had an okay kindergarten experience, but mm-hmm. even in the kindergarten area, there was trash in the corners of the playground. Mm-hmm. I remember this one grandfather would come and pick up his granddaughter mm-hmm. every day. And my wife, so I work in the evenings, so my mm-hmm. wife and I would both go for pickup. We'd mm-hmm. both go for drop-off. We'd always mm-hmm. be running with our kids. And mm-hmm. people were like, oh, it's mm-hmm. the running family, because it was like, we're running down. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. Running down Diablo and going to Green Valley. And again, there was trash in the kindergarten yard where I was like, oh, and this grandfather would always notice it and ask people, like, I've been around a long time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take a lot to just come pick up this trash, but you have like sandwich bags and I'm not talking after school. I understand the playground gets hammered really hard during the school day and then you clean it up, but we're talking like dropping off. And he was like, what is this? You guys had all day yesterday to pick this up, and these are, 5 and 6 year olds. You don't know what they're going to stick in their mouths or do whatever. So that was a little off-putting, but I'm like, you know what? Maintenance is tough. I don't know, whatever. So I kind of keep grinding through, and my wife wasn't pleased about it, but it was what it was. And then we had a couple experiences with a couple other kids in the class that they had some issues at home, and they had some things going on, and they, engaged in, I don't know if I want to necessarily call it bullying, but like my son ended up getting hit several times, and again, there's this whole very elaborate definition of bullying. So, if I say, hey, my kid got bullied, somebody will, I'm sure, pop up and say like, oh, well, that's not blah, blah. It's like, whatever, man. So there was that. And again, I wasn't happy about this at all. My wife was even more so. And we thought, okay, look, let's make sure that the people understand what's going on, right? The people in charge. And let's get through this year, and let's not, under any circumstance, be put back in the class with these kids.
Right.
So we get through kindergarten, we get to first grade. So this is my oldest. Yeah. We get put with this train wreck of a teacher. I mean, train wreck to the level where there were kids wetting their pants in the class. Oh, wow. I haven't told anyone this on air, and I'm saying it now. But so this kid who was great, he was great. Whenever I went to school, he was always happy, always hanging out, like not an issue at all. His dad was wonderful. And he had to go to the bathroom, and the teacher refused to let him go. This is a 6-year-old, mind you. So he wets his pants in class, and we're like, what? The dad's freaking out. He thinks he's going to...
chills right now.
I mean, and there were things even worse than that happening. We weren't allowed to volunteer in class. Now, I don't know what first grade teacher doesn't want you volunteering in class, but parents were not allowed in class. And the couple times when my wife or I ended up in class, say we had a field trip or something and it got canceled because it was raining, and then the teacher didn't have anything planned, and oh my gosh, it was... So we would stay to help. We're like, oh... this is why she doesn't let anybody in class, because you're not leaving with anything good to say. She's barking at kids, and my son was just, he would just come home so upset about school. And so there were things like that going on. The response from the higher ups at that school site, not fantastic at all. And then there were a couple other things that I'll tell you about afterwards, but they were just like, oh my God, not ever coming back here. We are immediately
I mean, that's
going.
Like a you leave mid-year type of thing. Like
there were yes, and luckily it was unlucky that it happened, but luckily the worst of it happened the last, I think, 60 days of school, and it was like, there's no recovering from this. I'm never coming back to the school. My son will not participate here, and so then we left and went to St. Isidore's, and I had been working. I didn't know it, but I had been working with the St. Isidore's family through my test prep for a decade and a half. So all of a sudden it was like, oh, I know you, and oh, I know you, and they're like, oh, Matt, awesome. So my kids got, there are teachers there that I worked with all of their kids, and they welcomed our family with open arms. So it became very clear that
it was an easy choice.
It was an easy choice. But here's this parlays perfectly into what I wanted to ask you about. We have a dropping enrollment in our schools. And people very frequently say, well, houses are expensive. They have all these stats, and they're like, houses are expensive here, and
yada. There are wait lists at private schools.
There are wait lists at private schools. Like there's a wait list at St. Isidore now. It's like double the possible enrollment. And you're like, okay, how is it possible that you're telling me that people don't have enough money to come here when they have young kids, when the local private schools, I mean, and that's not just St. Isidore. I mean, there are lots of smaller private schools here, and Walnut they have Creek, wait lists. They have I mean, there's one just 2 blocks away. There's a wait list there. Yes. Why is it that's going on, and how do we bring students back?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that your family had that experience, because, not okay. And I think that one of the big issues on our school board has been that elementary schools are underrepresented. Families feel that way. Elementary school teachers feel that way. The school board is, their agenda, their focus is very much on the secondary schools. And elementary school is where you set your foundation for learning. I mean, kindergarten and first grade, you're figuring out how to navigate a playground for the first time, how to punch in your student ID at the cafeteria. It's where special needs are first identified. It's where you learn to read. Right. I mean, it's where you learn to love or hate school as well. Important, yes, and that those first few years are so crucial to setting the stage for the rest of a child's education. And education sets the stage for every person's lifelong success. So you have to get those first years right. And in order to do that, you need to have the best and brightest talent teaching there. You have to support them with, the best opportunities for shaping their instruction approach. You have to invest in things like Soul Shop. And, my oldest son, he's a fourth grader, he really benefited from, was it in first grade? They had this whole bucket filling phenomenon, and you talked about, if your bucket's full, then you're able to give to other people's buckets, and these are bucket filling words, and and it was really interesting because we got away. Maybe it was a weekend ago when it was really smoky. We went saw my family in Southern California, and my second grader was having a moment, and my fourth grader said, "You know what, Mom? Percy didn't get to have Soul Shop, and I think it's because I don't think they do Soul Shop and remote learning." Or I was like, "Oh, why do you think that is?" And I said, "Well, what made you think of that?" And he said, "Well, because we learned that the balloon gets filled. If you're upset, it's like you have this big balloon and it's just like really full. And you have to let the air out of the balloon. And the way you let the air out of the balloon is by doing things like that make you happy. So maybe it's going and doing an activity you like, or maybe it's taking deep breaths, or maybe it's writing down what's bothering you, or talking to a friend, and I was sitting there listening to him, and I had all these things running through my mind, and then he started talking about this, and it was one of those like clarifying moments as a parent where you just zero in on what your child is saying, and you feel so happy that they are who they are, and that they're teaching you something that's just so important and so pure. And so I say all this just because we have to get it right in elementary school, and we have to have that representation on the school board. We have to have a parent with elementary, age kids on the board to bring those issues to light. And I got to tell you, as I've been campaigning the past couple of months, and you get a lot of heat in this community from a loud minority around, well, you don't have 20 years of PTA experience, you don't what are you thinking? And see, I'm gesticulating a lot. Sorry.
You're totally fine.
But I just keep going back to, hey, I respect your appreciation for decades of committee experience. Here's the thing. We have institutional knowledge on our school board. We've got that. What we don't have is on the ground experience. And we know data shows that diverse bodies make the best decisions. Diversity of thought results in the best output. So we can't have a school board that has all the same type of experience. We have to mix it up. so that we're getting lots of different viewpoints, lots of perspectives, lots of experience sets that are working together to create that vision that a school board creates. So, and then the other thing I want to say is that maybe in the past, PTA experience is what you needed to be a school board trustee. But if we've learned anything from the past year, change will never be this slow again. Our world's been turned upside down. And our community knows, and I know because I get to have a lot of really awesome conversations with people. They know that what our school board needs is some new energy and new ideas, and the resume of the past is of the past. We need people who know what's going on right now, who are experiencing this total upheaval and know how to help us navigate.
Well, what we need is people who know how to use Zoom. That's for sure.
And that,
you
yeah,
can't use
too.
Zoom.
That
should be like number one on your resume, like Zoom enabled.
Well, and you know, I mean, gosh, speaking of technology and distance learning, our teachers, again, they're amazing. So the ones that I've come in contact with, amazing. I do think that they would love some additional tech support.
Yeah, right.
And
it's not their fault. I mean, it's really confusing.
Right.
Yeah, I was helping. There's a director of academics at De La Salle, and I know her, and she helps students, and I know other tutors. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, you can do. I figured out a pretty good system for working with Zoom and distance learning and stuff. So I was making I made a little video that I didn't publish to the public, but I was sending it to people like, oh, this makes it so much easier, because literally you can go like, hey, hit this button and then hit that button and you're set. Right, that's all. And don't forget to hit this, like, check this little thing down here. So, you know, but there are little things where I don't think it takes a whole lot. I think you need to, like you were saying earlier, meet people where they are, understand the varying people's capacities for figuring out things on their own, figure out that they aren't inclined towards technology in the first place, and go from there. So, and again, I hate to, man, we keep going through like so many different things. How do we? Let's say, I think what you were saying is, why are students leaving? And you were saying, look, I feel like there's poor representation, at least at the elementary level. And
those are the parents who are the most involved usually, right? Because they're learning what it is to be involved with the school district. And if those people are leaving, that's just not good for the long haul.
Right, absolutely. And let's say that look, we're lacking. The elementary kids can't talk for themselves, right? If there's something going on at a high school, a 17-year-old can say, hey, this is a problem. Yeah. But a 7-year-old's likely not going to do that. So let's say there's underrepresentation. Yeah. How do you bring them back? How do we fill our schools again so that the existing students who either can't get into or cannot afford private school aren't saddled with increasing demands for funds or decreasing quality in the classroom? Because they're going to have one of the, like, there will be people at Green Valley, and unless we, do whatever changes with faculty at Green Valley, the board and district finds appropriate, it's none of my affair. But let's say we make those shifts. How do we bring people back to those schools?
I think, this community is really tightly connected. We're all playing sports together, or under normal circumstances, and we're all, at Hearts Ave together. We're, people, we're social people. Our community values social interaction, right? And competition. And so word travels fast. I think that there's an organic wave of information that just naturally happens. And if people are feeling empowered, if they're feeling like their voice has a seat at the table, that they have representation, that they duly deserve as a member of this community, then they're going to let their next door neighbor know, or they're going to let their friend know on their walk or at the park, or, when they're sitting and talking. And I think that is how we're all, as parents, we're all listening to each other's experiences and getting each other's takes on things and navigating parenting day by day. And
right.
So I really think that our community, if people are feeling proud and people are feeling represented, that word will get out like that. How's that for some sound effects?
That's fantastic. So you feel like the more, if we, for instance, at Green Valley, say they switched some people out or did whatever they felt was appropriate. I'm not going to say what they should do. It's none of my affair. You feel like it would happen organically, that the word
would get out,
that we have enough people in our existing commuting population to fill these schools, and if people felt represented, if people felt like they were being offered a good option, then the schools would fill themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I know that housing prices are up and families with young children can't afford to move here like they could. Our fourth grade, when we moved here, so our fourth grader, he's in the biggest class, and every class after that is smaller. And, we moved here when interest rates were low and right before the big spike. And so there are going to be, some economic macro changes in enrollment that our district is navigating for the first time. But I think there's a lot that can be said for having representation at the elementary school level on our board and helping families to feel supported so that they don't have to turn to other means, especially when they moved here for the schools and are paying those housing prices.
Right.
You only make that choice because you feel like you have to.
Well, and the housing price is tied to the education.
Right.
Right? Like the better the education, the more people will move here for that. They'll put their roots down and they'll swallow a $1.2 million 1,400 square foot house with a tiny backyard.
So you don't want them to get here and then quickly feel surprised by something that they see in elementary school and then leave the district. So those are all things that could be prevented.
Yes, and should be. This is public education.
Yes.
You should not be driving people away from the schools with poor leadership, poor representation, or teachers.
Right.
Switching gears just a tiny bit, if we may.
Yes.
By the way, did you have a question?
No, I was just checking. I got through my
Okay, good.
Notes.
Talking a lot, obviously, about elementary, but there are grand shifts happening for high schoolers, and specifically things like standardized tests.
Yes.
Right. So we have high schoolers who are pushing hard to get into school. You have people at Santa Mona, Monte Vista, Doherty Valley, all over the place, and Cal High really pushing. Those are large the family populations here are very much geared towards higher education and specifically trying to get into a 4-year. As the state with public universities takes away the SAT and they take away things that otherwise were very good predictors of success, and our students are left with just their GPAs and their curriculum.
Yeah.
What are things you think that we could do to help develop those resumes, develop that student's application so that, and again, there are obviously things people can do on their own, right? Like you can go get a job and that helps with saying, hey, I was working. But what can we as educators and people, designing the curriculum, right, part of the Holy Trinity, how can we design our schools to help support people to continue to distinguish them when it comes time for applications?
So it's a great question, and isn't it interesting what our state is
it's bonkers
doing?
I'm Mexican, right? Like my dad is my grandfather and grandmother came from Mexico, and I to see that the SAT, and my dad was a first generation and had to go through JCs, and I have a uncle who went to Harvard Law School. My dad went to UCSF med school. They both flew helicopters in Vietnam and got the GI Bill. I mean, like, we come from I'm immigrant family, right?
Yeah.
And to see that to see the tests being yanked
Yeah.
be in
Just
the
like
name of minorities. It's like that's not fair.
Yeah.
Like my dad and
the
my
test
uncle,
is like the great equalizer.
right? They crushed, and I used.
Yeah.
I grew up in Concord and went to not a great high school. I went to Ignatia Valley, and my test scores were part of the reason why I made it to Cal, because I knew I could. I was like, look, this is not a great school. They're going to see the school ranking. Even if I have a good GPA, they're going to know it's not a great school, so that doesn't count as much. I knew the standardized test would set me apart.
Them.
Yes, I'm like, oh, listen to me.
You
I
can
do this.
You can hang.
Just give me a shot. And they did. And I did go to Cal, and I'm very pleased for that opportunity.
Yeah.
But that's a
needed
big piece.
score.
I needed that score. I needed the test.
To prove it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you're a minority, so we should eliminate the test. It's like, no, I needed the test.
Yeah. The test was good.
Right.
No, I agree. I mean, throughout our lives, testing is part of life. Like we all need to, it's something you work toward. You take a test, it scores you, and it is a great equalizer. It shows raw ability in a way to universities that other factors don't show in that pure way.
Right, like an essay. An essay is totally subjective. You can get it written.
You could have had someone else write
your
it.
Your parents could be writing it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so funny when parents write essays for kids, because they always said, like, I do these seminars. Oh my gosh, it's so fantastic. Like, what? I'm sorry, I get excited. Yeah. There's one where it was like, is this a romance novel? What am I reading? This essay's talking about the sand sprinkled across the stairs as this kid's walking down on the beach, and just all these things. I'm like, what? Did you just call yourself Dionysus? And we're like, isn't he the god of wine? You're 17. Like, you should not be talking about being the god of wine. Oh, God bless it. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I know.
But yes, there are lots of subjective and imperfect ways to assess an application.
Right. So if for the UCs, if they don't have test scores to look at, and they're looking at people's applications and like, oh, is this person going to be able to hack it here? Do they have what it takes? We need to provide opportunities for our students to prove that through, being able to round out their experience, their community involvement. That could be through, volunteer work. It could be through extracurriculars, everything from choir to being an athlete to being involved in student government to being a student rep on your school board to, all these different opportunities. You have to present these to our secondary students, get them excited in middle school, even elementary school. Our John Baldwin PTA just announced that they're welcoming applications for, I think it's fourth and fifth graders to be part of student council. I forget exactly what they called it, but it's really exciting. So anyways, you start getting kids involved in these extracurricular activities. You start rounding out their experience level, and then you end up having an application that shows more about who you are and the types of activities that you add value to. I know that there's the PLIs where you can take, schools, at universities, at on college campuses, and then that helps prove you can hang, you can hack it. So I think all of those things are really important. I went to Villanova University, right outside Philly for undergrad, and I know that one of the reasons that I got in there was because I was so involved in so many different activities, student government, youth in government, debate, swimming. I did a lot of volunteer work. So yeah, I just think that if we make sure to give our students the flexibility to shape their applications in the way that suits their strengths, that's a win-win for everybody.
Gotcha. Now, with sports, with these extracurricular activities, they're even more of a draw on funds from parents in general, right? Like I always remember I was a swimmer and water polo player and on the wrestling team, and we would always at the beginning of the year they'd be asking you for funds, and there's a question now that people are really bringing up, which is, look, what is the role of public education? Is the role of public education to offer students a wide variety of things, right? Is it the role to offer them swim teams? Is it the role to offer them, classes at colleges? Or is it the role of public education to really deliver the base curriculum that leads to degrees? Because obviously the more classes you have to do that say are on the high end, you offer a physics and an AP physics, and then you offer a calculus and an AP calculus, and then a Calc BC, things like that. You have more and more and more money. And as the budget becomes more contracted, and we have to look towards, okay, how can we shape this budget to, one, match reality, but reflect our values, as you were saying, should the value of the public education be to offer these opportunities but not pay for them? Like, hey, if you want to take a DVC class, I'll let you out. You can go for your last class, but you got to buy the books and you got to pay the tuition there. Or should it be, hey, we aren't just going to offer the bare minimum. We're going to try to continue offering a variety of things beyond just the bare requirements for graduation.
Gosh, I mean, I think that opportunity should be available, as much opportunity to diversify and explore your strengths and grow your strengths. As much of that opportunity to do that should, as possible, should be available to our students. I haven't been on the board yet, and so I'm not sure, in terms of what we can fund and what we can't fund. But I would go into it with the philosophy that that we need to do everything we can to position our students to get into a 4-year college. And if there have to be some gives and takes, like, all right, well, we can't afford to offer this, but we will give you a free period to go and take that somewhere else. But we can, offer, these other electives. Then, I think it would have to be, it is a community endeavor. I mean, a lot of parents are funding these electives, or they're, so these extracurriculars, sports, choir, etc. So our community values, I think it's 95% of students, according to the SRVUSD website, say that they intend to go on to college. And I think that that's phenomenal and should never change and should only get higher, because we know that the more education people get, the happier they become. They are able to have more choices available to them. They can be healthier because they can afford benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that our district can do to continue to support our students in making that leap into college is what we should be committed to doing.
What you just said, the 95% intend to go on to college, and we should keep pushing for more. I've said this before. I'm an SAT tutor, obviously, right? So it's in my best interest if 100% of the kids theoretically wanted to go to college and 100% of the kids wanted to, prep for the SAT or something, right? I mean, that would seem like the proper motivation for me, considering my profession. But I don't think that's actually true. I think that from a community standpoint and from a financial standpoint, the more people we have in the community at large that are doing better financially, the better off I think a lot of us will be, because you're going to have fewer disenfranchised people. You're going to have fewer people that are struggling and have to make emergency decisions based on finances. I mean, healthcare is one of those huge ones where it's like people make decisions on their health based on their budget, which seems bonkers.
Yeah.
And when you talk about sending more kids to college, I think we're coming to a tipping point where people are realizing not all education is created equally. Okay, and what I mean by that is, sorry, USF, I always bring you up. But USF to me is like a unicorn, because I don't get it. It's so pricey for something like, you want to go to USF and study sociology. Well, you're going to run a $250,000 ticket for sociology. Now, if USF was like the number one engineering in the country, and they're like, look, it's going to be $250,000, but you're going to be the engineer to engineer all engineers. You're going to be it, right?
Yeah.
I could understand that, but you don't have grand, discernible value there. At least it doesn't make sense to me. Now, there's some people that very much like the religious aspect of it, and for those people, it may be worth it. But my point is, as we push more people into higher education, and not push, that's the wrong word, as we prepare more people for higher education, and more people feel that they need to go to college, and our state universities that we pay into with our taxes become more flooded with, let's say, out-of-state or international, or they contract because of budget issues. So we have fewer spots in the affordable university options. And more people want to be going to college. They're pushed into the private sector. And it's a question in my mind of, okay, look, if you have no real aspirations in college and you're just kind of going to go. I'm not saying you shouldn't go, but what I'm saying is, should we offer our students, as they're coming through high school, perhaps other options to explore? Because the question now is, look, if you don't go to college, what are you going to do? Right? Well, the answer is not a whole lot, right? Most people around, we as a community do not prepare students for, what if I don't want to go to college? So some students looking at it's like, well, look, I either go to USF and absorb a $250,000 hit over the next 4 years to study whatever, and I mean, who knows what they're going to study, but they don't have like the engineering, or like, I want to be a history teacher, I'm going to study something like that. Or I do nothing. Is it possible, do you think, to provide phenomenal education that leads students to higher education, and also tell students and help students and provide them with opportunities in education that it's like, look, and if college isn't your jam, don't just throw yourself into some private school that's going to cost you an arm and a leg. We have these other like partnerships with trades unions, and we have, technical education as well. Because again, I just don't think it's fair to expect every single student to see the value of a $250,000 education at 18. I mean, I know, excuse me, from my own experience, I didn't really get it until I was like 20. And I was going to Cal, and the tuition there when I started was only $4,000. And when I graduated, it was $8,000. So it had doubled in a 4-year period. And it's only continued going up, and it only will.
Very good timing on your part.
Yes, very good time. But again, it's one of those things. How do we deal with that? Because again, should it be our value to get 100% of our kids going to college? Or should we say, hey, look, if 100% want to go, great. But if there's a portion that don't want to go, we also support them in the public education arena.
Yes. I mean, I think high school counselors are key in helping students navigate these decisions. I think that it's tough because the data shows that it benefits people in the long run to go to college. And when you're 18, you 17, 18, you think you know everything, but there's still a lot you don't know. And so having resources in the district to help students kind of navigate these choices, I think is really important. If that means that they should go to a community college for a couple years and then, move into a UC, then maybe that's the right choice for them. You don't have to go straight, to a
right.
USF. If it means that they, should look into some, a trade school, then that very well could be the right option for them. But I think that it is really important. I wouldn't want our number to go down. I think 95% is really great. I think it's
absolutely.
really great that our students have the interest in and plans to go on and continue to learn and grow and educate themselves. So I think that that's something our district should be really proud of, that they've inspired that appetite for further education in the majority of our students. But yeah, one size never fits all. So again, I do think high school counselors are so key. And I think that, job fairs and inviting all types of vocations to be represented there are ways that our schools can embrace other avenues without additional cost to the district. And I'm sure there are more, great ideas coming from that, those students. I was talking to 3 students who are at St. Mary's. We were talking at the farmer's market this past Saturday. And one of them brought up your point around, he felt like in high school he had buddies who didn't really want to go to college but didn't really know what other options they had. And then this particular young man was telling me that his father was in construction and had a really hard time finding a good electrician and a good plumber. And so this young man was kind of putting those two things together and saying, well, if there are these students who don't know what they want to do, but then there are these vocations that don't have the same talent influx that they used to, how can we kind of address it in our schools? So I would really look to the students to help come up with ideas for how to come up with ideas as they have a seat at the school board table and how they would want to kind of present those options to folks. But I do firmly believe that inspiring our students to move on to college from high school is the best long-term decision for them.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I liked college, and I hope my my sons.
But they shouldn't feel like it's that or bust, or they shouldn't just go and waste it. My mom always says education's wasted on the young.
That's 100%.
Come on.
But, like the first semester of college, you cannot.
Well, that's part of the experience. That's educational in its own right.
Okay, then I really took advantage of my education in every respect, because it was like my first year was, I didn't have it. I didn't see it. I didn't get the plan. And then, after that, I crushed. I absolutely killed it. But
I have a ton of friends from growing up who went to community college for the first 2 years and then went on to a UC and have had a great experience, have great careers.
Right.
I think there are definitely different ways to navigate it.
Absolutely.
But I like keeping people's eye on the ball.
Right. Yeah.
For college.
It's such a tricky thing because, as you're pointing out, it's like, look, I don't want to back off from getting more students into college. And at the same time, I don't want to emphasize, hey, it's one size fits all. It's a really tricky balance. I do think there are ways, though, that students could come up with to introduce or show a kind of a bigger picture that wouldn't all you got to do
the district more money.
I got it. I got the solution.
What is it? So you waited.
No,
you let me.
I got it. Listen to me. You're not going to like it, but this is what you do. Okay, you clog your toilet. All right, throw a whole roll of whatever you want down there. All right, flush that puppy, get it nice and stuck, and then make your teenager pay the plumber. And then their eyes will open. They're like, wait, it was $100 just to get you to show up, and then unclogging it's another $150, and you were here for 25 minutes. And then they will see the value of skilled labor. I actually bought, we have old terracotta pipes, right? So I live in the old Cameo neighborhood. We have terracotta pipes that are our main sewer line down to the street from our house. And they're slightly misaligned, okay? And we have trees and there are roots and everything. And so, oh my gosh, we called Roto-Rooter like 1 or 2 times because we were just flushing too much stuff. I mean, my oldest son was, going to the bathroom and he just used like half a roll of toilet. Well, it doesn't matter. The point is, I can relate. Thank you. I actually bought a power auger from Home Depot. So you know that giant machine with a drum that Roto-Rooter brings out that spins? I went and bought one of those for $500 from Roto-Rooter.
Did it work?
Oh my God. Hell yeah, it worked.
Oh, great.
I have like the nasty black gloves and I get out there with the air pedal and I'm like shoving it down. Because I'll come home from work at 9:50 and my wife will be there and she was like, listen, I'm sorry. I feel like she doesn't even have to finish it. I just see it. I go get changed. I put on my Carhartt and I'm like, here I go. I have a headlamp, like the headlamp you wear when you're camping. And I'm out there at 10:20 at night, just like in the steaming, just running the snake down the line. But you know what? It beats calling Roto-Rooter. Like, I'd rather deal with it myself.
See, you were empowering yourself.
I empowered myself.
You learned. You made it a learning moment.
I did. God bless. Pat me on the back.
Took it into your own hands.
Oh God, it was too much in my own hands. I wanted less in my hands.
Welcome to my kingdom.
Oh my God. Oh, it's the worst. Yeah, terracotta.
But did you have some neighbors saying, hey, Matt, can I use that when you're done?
Oh, hell yeah, I did. I mean, funny. I have a neighbor right up the street. Yeah. Dear friend of mine from Cal. He also went to Haas, actually. He moved in and was like, let me get that snake. And so it's on wheels because it's really heavy, right? So we're like carting it down the block and like drinking a beer. Like, this is just ridiculous. And of course, it's whenever you loan a tool to somebody, you're obligated to stand there and watch them use it. It's like, what's going on over there with that thing?
I learned this the hard way.
Yeah, right.
So let me...
You're going to want to turn that around there because that's... You get the hose, too.
Not that direction.
Nope. Okay, go. Do you need a refresh? No, you're wearing the black gloves of shame. Like, they're so nasty, but they're thick and they keep your hands warm and keep them clean. So it's good.
And it's a good bonding moment, God, it's great. That will provide laughs for years.
It provides laundry for years, that's for sure.
Yes.
So, bottom line is, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, so I do have to pick up my daughter.
Okay, I was going to say.
I have like 5 more minutes.
I was going to say.
I promised her Mommy would pick her up today.
Listen to me. I am not going to make you break that promise.
I didn't yesterday, and I got in trouble for that.
Listen, we've talked about a lot of things, and I think one of the biggest things you're saying is, look, we need parental representation on the board. We're not saying eliminate all institutional representation.
No.
We're saying, look,
we need institutional too, but we have it already.
We have it. What we don't have the opportunity for is Priscilla on the school board with elementary age kids, our most vulnerable populations in school. We don't have that kind of connection to the community and enthusiasm and energy, high passion, that you would bring. Yeah,
and 2 things about that. One is I've seen firsthand in my career, I've been in banking, I was at the Gap for a while, I've been at Clorox like over 6 years now. The beauty of Clorox is that there is a lot of institutional knowledge there, and it's very well partnered with new, bold thinkers. And there is this really happy marriage between the two there. And so I have seen how it works. I know how to navigate in that world, how to take the benefits of institutional knowledge, but also I I know how to pair it with new thinking in a way that gets everyone on board. So, there are so many benefits to having people around that have been there for a while and done this for a long time. But there also comes a point where you need people in the room who say, hey, I know we've tried this before, but that was like 7 years ago.
And the world's different.
And the world's different now. And if we put this slight pivot on it, or this slight twist on it, it actually could be like the best thing since sliced bread,
I appreciate it.
That was a really silly. I'm a total dork, if you haven't realized.
You're talking to an SAT tutor. Like, you should not be insulting yourself in this manner.
So I think I say all this because I have such an appreciation for institutional knowledge, and I by no means think it should be eradicated. I just think we need to add some new flavor, and some new energy. And gosh, there was one other thing you said. Oh, passion. The other thing that I've noticed on the board is that there is some good thinking there that is put out on the table, but then there's no closer. There's not the passion there to drive it home, to say, wait, we just put a really big gold nugget on the table here, and I don't know that everyone's fully appreciating it. Let's go back. Let's go back there for a minute. Let's talk more about that. And you need people who have skin in the game to be motivated to do that. Otherwise, you have people who, they put out their thought, it wasn't aligned to, and then they just move on. Sometimes you need to do that, but sometimes it's worth a second or third push to say, are we sure that everyone's aware of this opportunity we're now walking away from and the benefits to it? So that's why I really feel strongly that you need someone who knows that when they leave that board meeting, they're going to walk through their door or close their laptop and be living the repercussions of those decisions, and their family will feel those direct impacts the very next day and every day in their education.
I dig it.
That's that.
I dig it. Priscilla, I will
That's
let
a
you
wrap.
get your daughter. That's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.
All right.